Joining us now, as advertised, as promised, as Twittered and Facebooked, Shane Taylor. You remember him from our Band of Brothers interviews and, of course, everything else that he's been up to. Shane, how you doing?
Very well, Nightmare. I love that. The voice projected out, giving it some, and now let's not slump as I come into the picture. Let's keep this let's keep this good. Let's keep this rocking. Yes, I'm well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's been almost 18 months since we've chatted?
Yes, and that's flown by. You probably had about a year's worth of my audio, did you not? Just
Well, we did have quite a few minutes, but that's the best part.
I was just running down the list of all those very nice, concise interviews you had with all the rest of the Band of Brothers cast, and then, I was kind of, how many parts? It went up to 7, 8 parts, and I mean, I listened back. I checked out after the first part. I've got to be honest. I thought, then that was nothing on your part. That was just, I've had enough of me. I've got to go. But they were good. They were good interviews. I listened to practically all of them. We spoke about this before, but I just think as time's gone on, I mean, somehow people are getting through to me in certain ways, either through agents or, just people I know in London or something. And it's that have just come to the show, just discovering the show on social networks or something like that. They've literally just come to the thing, or they've been told about it, or they've known about that show for so long, but they just have yet to buy the box set or something. So it's one of those, the traction on it. It's just, it's bigger now than ever before. Those first 3 or 4 years, was nowhere near the same scale. And I know that kind of stands to reason because more people do come and get they become aware of it. But it does amaze me. It does amaze me because a lot of things, can fade and have their day. Of course, it can go the other way. But it astounds me really to, for people to kind of remember it and and still be as excited about it today as it ever was.
And that was one of the groovy parts about Band of Brothers. It was so incredibly well done that every year the more fans you get, and after 10 years you've got 10 times the amount of fans that you did when it first came out.
Yeah. Some were not even born when it first aired.
Right.
That's the scary bit. That's the real scary bit.
And now they're getting to the age where they can understand everything, and their parents and dads and grandfathers are all like, "Well, here, you got to watch this."
Yeah, which is great.
Well,
it really is.
I think it's fantastic because we're losing so many of the greatest generation that ever lived so fast that works like Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan and all the newer World War II films and TV shows and miniseries, they really do keep alive the memories of what it was that these guys sacrificed to make the world what it is today. Yeah.
I mean, the last 5 years has been staggering, hasn't it? For just losing those vets, and you're right. It's important, but I think in terms of that show and the Pacific and Saving Private Ryan and those films and TV series of that ilk, I mean, the good thing is that they are repeated quite a lot,
right.
which is I think I don't know what it's in the States. I think they got the Spike TV or certainly on the History Channel. It's kind of repeated.
If I come by one of those channels and any of the episodes are on, I watched the rest of them.
Yeah, it is one of those, isn't it? It is one of those. I do. I mean, it is one of those. You have to stop and I suppose that's it. More so because I know. I know the guys, but I mean, I can't help it. I mean, I just get tied into the story and the way it's done, and it's funny actually. I bumped into Tony Toe's assistant the other day. It was in London. I was eating at a place in London, and he happened to sort of he was staring, so I was kind of I thought, do I know this guy? And then he came over and said that he'd been working with Tony Toe from way back in the day. And then we just got riffing on the memories of it all, and Tony, because I think Tony went on to do some, with the Pacific and stuff like that. So he's really gone on a long journey. And I think, talk of this third installment. I don't know what you know of that, but I think they're going to concentrate it on the air squadrons. If I could be wrong. But I think they're looking at that side of things with a limited. I mean, you're talking about maybe three or four main roles. So I'm not entirely sure of any more specifics, but I'm sure it'll be an outstanding piece.
If history is going to repeat itself, it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, it'll be quite nice, I think, to have a kind of a trilogy of projects, because they've got the formula now, they've got the team, they know how to work it. So I think it'll be, quite exciting if they do manage it. I'm sure they will.
Now, did you watch The Pacific?
Yeah, I did. I mean, on the 10th anniversary, I managed to get over to, and I really wanted to do this. I got over to, we talked about this before, got over to Mike Cudlett's, the famous...
The barbecue, yeah.
And so that was great. And of course, they're not just the main bunch, but there were kind of, kiddies, and it was just a huge affair. But the Pacific Boys were there. There were quite a few of the Pacific Boys that were invited and that happened to be in Hollywood at the time. And Josh Hellman was one, I remember being there, and
I've seen the picture. Remy was in there too.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was going to ask you about that. Wasn't his character the creepiest guy you've ever seen in a war movie ever?
Yeah, I mean, and you meet him in real life. I mean, it just shows you what kind of job he did. Which I'm always amazed by. I know I have a toe in the game, but it's still a great kick to meet somebody and then watch a piece of work that is really kind of away from who they are, and he did a great job, I thought, and well, they all did. I was, I've heard stuff about the Pacific, and there's always that comparison that's made, and I it's an obvious one. You can understand it, but I don't think there should be one. I think it should be judged on its own merits, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it's obviously what we had was a kind of a particular company, and it was in Europe, and it's the Nazis, and in terms of the landscape was always changing depending on the country they were in. So from an aesthetic point of view, that was kind of interesting. Whereas obviously what they took on in Pacific was huge. I mean, it was before, it was during, it was after. And of course, most of the actual the action related stuff was in the jungle, and it was just in the jungle, So I think from aesthetically, it didn't divert so much, but I still thought it was a great piece of work, and that's fascinated me anyway, just because of how just how ruthless that particular campaign was, and reading a couple of books at the time I saw it on that campaign, and I just my stomach was churning. It was like, oh, geez. And so, yeah, I mean, I kind of have a fascination because it tends to play second fiddle when you look back, because of Hitler and the SS and all of that stuff. And so it often goes under the radar a little bit. So it was good that, something was made on that kind of brought that into the spotlight, akin to Band. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. What did you think?
No, I totally enjoyed it. It really hit home with me because that's where my grandfather fought. But I loved the Pacific. I loved, I think one of the main differences between the Pacific and Band of Brothers would have to be the fact that the Band of Brothers was a book first, and everything was pretty well organized. And when they went to do the Pacific, nobody had written a book about that. Nobody had taken one single company, like you said, and wrote about it. So it was kind of a almost a conglomeration of stories wrapped up into each character that they pulled from headlines or other people's stories that made this this person. As opposed to actually having everyone playing a living being.
And I think just the broadness of the scope. It was a huge. To kind of take it before and then during and then after, I think was a massive. They probably needed 20 episodes. I don't know. I mean, that would be my only thing. It was such a huge kind of spectrum to cover. whereas, you know, with Easy, you're following that campaign and until the end of it. But, you know, come the end at Hitler's Nest, you know, that's kind of the end, you know, and you have your send off with the voiceovers and what happened to all of them. But so I think in scope it was scaled down, and of course you got to know a few more within our company, which I quite liked. You know, there was, but you know, I don't. Yeah, like I say, I mean, I don't think it's fair to sort of compare. I think they should be taken in their own way, and I think they're just nice companion pieces. So I think a third installment, which I think it probably will happen, would be an interesting one.
Since we spoke to you the last time, you and I actually met.
We did
at Up Pottery, where of course Easy Company, the original Easy Company guys left from there on D-Day. I mean, there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you about that.
Yes.
First of all, what was it? What do you think of the guys jumping out of a plane? Can you believe it?
It was fantastic.
Who were you most surprised? You know, that did it. I would suggest Bart.
No, because you see, you know, Bart Tipper. My goodness me! I mean, he's got that Italian edge. You see, that's kind of he's all machismo, right? He's all kind of there. But he has a soft underbelly, and I mean that with all due respect. He's a sensitive soul, but he kind of puts on the He-Man act, you know. But of course, you put on the He-Man act, you got to walk the walk, you know. And that was quite hilarious seeing him go up, because I thought he would do it. I mean, once he was committed, I thought he would do it. But he was the one probably with the most issues afterwards, you know, feeling nauseous. I think, I mean, you were there, Ross, so I don't know what happened, but apparently he was spinning, or the guy was spinning him at the end.
Yeah.
And so that really did him in. It took about, I really took him about a day to kind of get over that, whereas the others are kind of shaking it off, you know, and got on with life. But
he was green.
Yeah, he was green. So that bit didn't surprise me. But
one of the other things, I don't know if you heard this, before the jump, these tandem guys have got quite a sense of humour. And of course, we were on the plane, and we're all geared up, ready to go. Everybody's feeling a bit nervous. And one of the tandem instructors sitting opposite Bart looked at Bart's tandem instructor and says, "You're not going to let him jump like that, are you?" And of course, Bart's tandem guy plays along with it and says, "What do you mean?" And the guy says, "Well, look, it's all frayed. The strap's all frayed there. You can't let him jump like that." And Bart's like, "What do you mean?" What? He's looking, and he's starting to go green already. So that's probably part of the explanation as to why, you know, he was a bit nervous. And of course, when they did go out, the guy started hovering and doing somersaults in midair, so that's.
Well, listen, I can't, you know, sit here and hack on anybody really, because as you know, and I did flag it up very early on, I was the B.A. Baracus of the outfit, you know, and it wasn't necessarily about the jump itself. It was more, I ain't getting in no plane, you know what I mean? I'm just not going up. I don't like planes. I can't stand planes, and including Smokey Gordon's son, Scott.
Yeah, Smokey Gordon. Did you meet him? Shane?
Yeah, I saw Scott. Yeah, I met Scott. Yeah, great, good time.
Lovely guy.
Lovely guy. Yes.
Guy. He was the oldest jumper, and he was just phenomenal. And because Ben couldn't make it. Ben was wanting to do it, and something happened, and Ben couldn't make it.
I think there were a lot of people, Ross, that wanted to do it, and then all of a sudden, at the 11th hour, when, oh gosh, you know what, my big toe hurts, or, you know, I'm calling you out, Leachy. I'm calling you out. I'm calling out many people on that jump, and you know, I just think, to save face, with all due respect, you know, I couldn't believe the dropouts coming up to the thing. I was the only one that just kind of turned up and went, listen, you know, it's not going to happen, but I'm here for the day. But they, you know, it was such a good day. I was really impressed with the turnout, and people travelling from all over the place. You know, bringing in jeeps from Europe, and just to be there, and you know, as far as your eye could see, I mean, people were in uniform, or there was, you know, artillery around, you know, just military equipment everywhere, and of course, getting to drive the jeep, that was great fun, you know. had Alton Moore on the guns, and that was, or the weapons, I should say. And I just thought it was a very well organized and good spirited day.
Shane, we got a surprise caller who's just joined the group right now. Surprise caller, I know that you wanted to talk with Shane. How's everything going?
Fantastic, Brother Shane.
Who we got here?
Hey, Brother Chris.
For the benefit of the listeners, we have Chris Langlois on the line, grandson of Eugene Roe. Hi, Chris.
How's it doing, Ross?
Chris, Brother Chris, there he is. Well, let me say this, that's real cool. That's real. We got Dallas, Dallas's finest. Are the streets being protected, my friend?
Yes, we just finished having tacos for lunch, so it was a small break, but soon the streets will be filled with police looking for bad guys.
Looking for bad guys, If there's one man that was destined for this sort of work, it's Chris Langlois. I mean, what a legendary man he is. I mean, I wish you were living here, brother.
I know. I wish I were too.
Chris, is there anything you would like to share with the listeners and regarding Shane's portrayal of your grandfather?
Oh, the pressure's on. The pressure's on. Listen, we've spoken about the poetic license, haven't we, Chris? We kind of spoke about this before. I'm just kind of covering my tracks now before he answers.
Casting was originally looking for a really good-looking actor.
That's it.
Yeah. They ended up with Shane.
Yeah.
So apparently he was the last minute. They said he was delivering flowers, and they just pegged him and picked him up and put him in the booty. While we got you, I thought about this, Ross, and I've hesitated to ask. I don't know if I've even said anything to Shane, but I'll tell you, the first time I watched it, the part where the Shelley really comes in episode 6, and Roe hesitates in his foxhole. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it struck me because you have to go back to 2001. We landed to the premiere in Normandy, and we checked in the hotel, and we said we're with the Roe family, and the lady said, "Oh, you're going to really love episode 6. It's all about your grandfather." So we were all in shock. We had no idea that was the case. I'll take you back. Okay. Yeah, no, we had no idea that an episode was going to focus on him. I take you back to 1992 when the book came out, and I remember it for whatever reason. My mom came home and said, "Hey, look, a book's just been put out. Your grandfather's in it." I scrolled to the back because I knew that he had jumped on D-Day, but that's all I knew. So I scrolled to the back, and Roe is mentioned in the back 3 times on three pages. So I read all 3 pages, which encompassed 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I closed that book and I said, "Papa didn't do anything in the war."
So that's interesting.
All right. So fast forward back to 2001, and we find out a whole episode is devoted to him. We were taken aback. And then, so when I watched episode 6, of course, that was a focus. And I remember thinking, holy cow, they're showing him hesitating in a foxhole in the middle of the Shelley. And it struck me. And I talked to everybody else in my family, and everybody said, no, nobody else thought that it was any way, shape, or form cowardice. Everybody thought it just showed how bad those guys had it after being shelled and shot and cold and freezing.
Heavily fatigued, Yeah.
And so I watched it again. Funny, because I knew this was coming up, Shane. I watched it 2 days ago, and I watched it again, and it really has started to sink in with me that was in no way anything but just a man, especially the medic, who had to run when everybody else jumped in a hole. When all hell broke loose, everybody got in a hole except for the medic, and he had to jump up
every time.
Every time. And I think it just showed the physical, mental, emotional, physiological toll that those guys went through. And I think it actually, I now see it as so much of a positive
you know, from my perspective, that was, you know, what you've realised now is exactly the kind of angle that we were going for, and certainly the sort of chosen path that I was going down. You know, just because of the very nature of just jumping every time your name's called, no matter where the injured were. You know, this guy's got to just do it and do it and do it. And can you imagine? Right. I mean, can you imagine what toll and how taxing? I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, it's beyond the realms of imagination. Yeah. So it's really trying to tap into that. Otherwise, it's just, you know, I might as well just put a little golden rope on and be Wonder Woman. I mean, it doesn't, you know what I mean? It's like, it's super heroic and it doesn't tap into any kind of reality. And I think it needed to be seen that this guy, and I think even Winters says it, doesn't it? It's like, get into town, get yourself a hot meal, something that he never had, you know, for a long, long time. And I think that it just taps into that. You know, he's just saying, you've been running on empty. You know, you're all over the place right now. Just get yourself stabilized. So I think that qualifies it, you know, in a way from as it goes on. And that's something that we just, you know, was definitely in the back of our minds to highlight. You know, just the exertion of it all, and you know, the monotony of it, the sort of you know, the indefinite aspect to it. You know, this guy was just going on, no end in sight. You know, can you imagine? I mean, it's just it's so difficult to kind of comprehend fully. But so to play that was just like a recurring nightmare, and all the while that your energy levels are just being sapped. So, you know, but you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. It's great.
I don't know, maybe that was too close to it, that it took me so long, and it may be just me because I seemed like I was the only one. And I think being a cop, you know, in these last few years has opened my eyes to a lot of that, because it's one of those things. It's not that you're afraid, because if you don't have any fear of your life being taken from you, well, then you're crazy. So any sane person that's in fear of their life is by nature afraid. The difference is that you keep going forward, and there's jobs and there's people that will go forward, and that's the example of, you face fear for that second, and then you still go and do it, and that to me is exactly what it portrays. Yeah,
and you know, truly heroic as well in that sense. You know,
absolutely.
Well, I got a question for both you, Chris and Shane, both of you. Was the premiere the first time you guys met, or did you meet before that, or did you meet after that?
No, we met for the first time, and I'll try to dig up those photos of meeting Shane on the bus. And
they're great. I've got a lot of those framed.
Now, which one of you guys were more nervous meeting the other one?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it came. It was such a rush, wasn't it, Chris? It was such a blur. It was such a big spectacle. It was just, everybody was running on adrenaline, and it was just an exciting time for everybody. And because and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I mean, probably 98, Papa sort of passed away, right? Yeah. So it was a bit before. So whereas you had some of the guys being able to sort of tap in and meet either before, a lot of them met before, or certainly during. You know, I didn't have that, so it was really like the extended family of Roe. I mean, Ralph Spina kindly sent me a bunch of stuff on Roe beforehand, and so I had a little bit of insight there. But you know, I didn't really know who I was going to see. I didn't really, but I was just excited to meet anybody really, and so it was great. There was just a warm reception, and you know, truly a highlight of the whole filming for me. Actually, was actually the meeting in Normandy, and it made, you know, I've said this before, but everything seemed to make sense then. It just, you know, it emphasized so much about what we'd kind of, the journey that we'd gone on, and here we were kind of meeting the real people, or the people connected to the real life soldier, and you know, listen, I mean, it's just, we don't see each other as much as we'd like to, but we're certainly always in contact, and you know, I mean, I was just, I don't think nerves came into it. There wasn't time to get nervous, for me anyway. I don't know about you, Chris, but
No, you know, in that moment, I could still see it. I was sitting on the left-hand side of the bus, you know, toward the back. And so when Shane came down the aisle, you know, he ran right into my Aunt Maxine, which is another one of Rose's daughters. And I've got a picture of them hugging.
That was the big hug. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just there's not even words that need to be said. It was just an instant bond that has never gone away. And it's very, very special. And we're not the only ones. I mean, all of the families and the actors have that. And it's been that way since day one. And it's nothing like anything else that I've ever experienced.
Yeah. And ditto from my side. I mean, without a doubt. I can still remember the king cake in Louisiana, and you know, and I can remember you coming to Richmond with your mum and dad. You know, it was you know, so yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a real testament to what that show managed to achieve. You know, there's all the talk about, you know, actors and production crew getting together for these reunions and everything, but what kind of slips the net is that, you know, people are still very much, you know, in contact with family members, you know, people that you know, the soldiers that they played, the people, you know, the real people involved with those individuals, and so there's connections behind the scenes that go on and will continue to go on. I'm sure.
It's funny hearing how you two guys met, because last year I was lucky enough to visit the States, and I'll begin by telling you what happened from my point of view, and then I'll let Chris tell you the story. But I was in Dallas having a cigarette at a petrol station, a gas station.
Right. Yeah, that's
Chris, do you want to tell the story again from your perspective? I mean, this is unbelievable.
I don't know what the probability on this would be, but my goodness, this is incredible.
Yeah, so for the benefit of the listeners who don't know, I'm having a cigarette in Dallas, and I've never met Chris in my life, and this is what happened, Chris.
Well, as the police are often to do, we stop by the local convenience store to get something to drink, and here's this guy standing out in the middle of the parking lot, which already attracts my attention because people don't stand out in the middle of the parking lot usually at this location. It's not a common occurrence, so you're already on my radar. I'm listening. And this guy's talking in this funny accent, and so obviously he's not from here. So I take the off chance and say, "Hey, Ross," and he turns around, and his eyes were as big as his head. and of course, he doesn't understand why the police are messing with him already, because surely Scotland Yard did not call ahead and warn us that he was coming.
But were you doing your Stan Laurel act, Ross? You weren't.
I was taking. Do you know what I was doing? I was taking a photograph of Lidl's, because I didn't know they had Lidl's in America, and I thought my sister's going to love that. I was at Aldi's. I said they've got an Aldi's in Dallas, and Chris being a cop thought, why?
To the Dallas police scoping the joint.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, Ross. I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. I recognised him from the pictures, Chris, and that's how we met. How bizarre is that?
That is incredible.
But, the Aldi grocery store is a not commonly visited tourist attraction here.
Brilliant. And Shane, the payoff was I had a friend in the car who didn't see Chris and I meeting, because this happened around the corner from where she was in the car. So Chris agreed kindly to pretend to be arresting me and throw me against the hood of the car.
Oh, and very good.
Yeah, she almost pooped her pants. Brilliant. It was brilliant.
That story always makes me giggle, man. That's awesome.
Can I just say to Chris, thank you for giving us your time today, Chris. I know you're at work right now, and do appreciate you calling in. And it's always great to have both of you guys on here, especially at the same time. So this is great. Thanks, Chris.
No, I'm glad to be here. My partner is driving here. I can't hear. We've got we have 3 different radios in here. We just had a burglary of a house attempted, and my partner is listening to the radio, and I can't hear it, but he's driving fast. So something tells me we're about to get into something here.
Well, go keep the streets of Dallas safe, my friend.
Yeah, and you stay safe, Chris. You stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always. Always. Good to hear y'all. I'm going to put my seatbelt on. And sorry to cut you so loose. I'll catch you another time.
Yeah, love the family, Chris.
Hey, you too, brother.
Okay, catch up soon.
Cheers, Chris. Bye-bye. Lovely guy. He took me to Hooters. He took not Hooters. The other one that's
much to the chagrin of Ross's traveling partner for that. She was like, "Don't you dare go to Hooters. It demeans women."
Yeah, that's right. She says, "Don't you dare go to Hooters." That's exactly what she said. So Chris took me to Twin Peaks, which is the rival.
Twin Peaks. That's that's brilliant. Oh my goodness me. You got some stories, Ross Owen. That's for sure.
Shane, let's talk about your TV series. Let's talk about Strike Back.
Right.
Now, is this the is this the first season? Was it Strike Back where you were in the first season, or did you come in?
I think there's a. Well, no, I mean it's a case of being, Cinemax got involved. So from their point of view, it's probably their first season, but overall is actually the second season because there was a kind of an all British Strike Back 1 with Richard Armitage and Andrew Lincoln, who's on. Richard Armitage has went on to The Hobbit, of course, and Andrew Lincoln's now Walking Dead lead. So those two were the leads of the first series, and then Cinemax got involved, tripled and probably even more the budget, and took Strike Back another way, and then cast Philip Winchester and Sullivan Stapleton as the new leads. And so for their first sort of that they had already done one season. That was it. Project Dawn, I think, was the first season, which was of Cinemax, but officially the second. So this was, and I think Ross just said it, this was the third, or the one I was in was the third one, Strike Back Vengeance, and the second one for Cinemax, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Now, the other actors in this, the one that I really want to talk about because she's smoking hot, Rona Mitra.
Yeah. There you go. There you are.
How fun is that to work with her?
Well, it's one of those where you just, you turn up and then you kind of, you get to, you're aware of obviously the regulars involved, but you're not too sure who else is attached. And Rona came in, of course, as one of the newer members of the Section 20 outfit, the new boss woman. And in all honesty, I really didn't, this can happen. You get attached and you can say, well, I worked with Rona Mitra in this series, when you really didn't, and mine was one of those cases. I mean, I didn't really have, she was pretty much, within the sort of headquarters and going out in the field with them on occasions. But my particular character really had no storyline. She talked about my character and all this sort of stuff, but we never really met. But I mean, and outside of that, Rona lived in her own. She had her own place. We were in Cape Town and for most of the shoot, and so she had her own place. So I really didn't get to meet in 6 months or whatever. I didn't really get to see her that much. The odd party, and then I got my little girls over, and and we went to just visit the set on one, and Rona was there, so she kind of got involved, and we met my little girls and everything. So we had a day there, but I really didn't see that much of her, but kicked some ass and did her bit, and I think she's back there now I think they're in Hungary now. So I know, yeah. So I wish I had more for you there, Nightmare. I wish I had. I mean, but that was very limited.
Can you tell us a little bit about your character in this show for those who haven't seen it?
Well, I mean, he came from he served with Philip Winchester's character, who's Stonebridge in the show, and they were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so they're special forces, and during they pick it up at a point where my younger brother, who is ill-equipped to be a soldier, he's just not soldier material. My character is trying to force Stonebridge in a way to kind of get him through the training so he could become this kind of special forces operative. Stonebridge realizes, and I think my character, Craig Hansen, realizes, but chooses to deny it, because we come from a family of soldiers, so it's kind of an expected thing. In saying that, something happens whereby my younger brother, Keris Flynn, who he plays Jake Hansen, great actor. He goes a bit kind of loopy, that forces Stonebridge's character kind of take him out, and that kind of gets the ball rolling, because that sends my character into kind of an extreme reaction, I suppose, and I end up taking out one of, you know, his. I don't think it's a plot spoiler now; it's been and gone. So I mean, I take out his wife in the worst possible way, and to kind of gain this vengeance, and that becomes. Then there's a kind of subplot that goes on with the main story, where he and I have this personal conflict that kind of carries over the 10 episodes. We have a few near misses along the way. I end up getting involved indirectly with the people that they're after in the main plot, if that makes any sense, with Charles Dance and Vincent Regan, and then we have, you know, our kind of resolution, I suppose. We have our climaxes at the end with a fight between us, and yeah, only one of us is not coming back for season 4, and I think you know who that is.
Well, we got another caller for you. I don't know if you remember Jenny from Minnesota.
Yes, Lehman.
Yes,
Lehman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She is on the line and's got a question for you.
You able to hear me?
Yes,
Jenny,
absolutely,
loud and
Jenny.
clear. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good. Yeah, this is Doc. This is Doc Jen. I refer to her as Doc Jen in my book. She's studying. How's that going?
I actually graduated in December.
Wow. What next?
I actually switched majors to health information technology. I got my license and I'm just looking for jobs.
This is the proper way to go, you see. This is going to lead Doc Jen into a proper career, a proper job. You know, this is what it's all about. Well done, Jen. So how did you do with the graduation? It was all good?
Yeah, it was very good.
Well, and with her new role as health administration, she will never have to wander around looking for scissors.
There you are. There you go.
I know Jenny's been very excited about calling in, and she couldn't wait until this special day. She's a loyal fan of the show, and she does have a question about Strike Back. Jenny.
All right, my question is, compared to B.O.B., what was it like for you to play the bad guy and actually handle a weapon?
Well, you know, very different. I referred to my character, Craig Hansen, as Death Row, really, because that's kind of, it was completely the opposite. And, you know, it's nice to change it up a bit. And, you know, it's funny, actually, because in Bob, you know, I still managed to, you know, the majority of my training was obviously in the medic field, but I still got to kind of handle weapons and stuff like that. And there was even a scene that was kind of, I can't even remember, we may have shot this as an alternative, where I have a 45, I think, somewhere concealed or whatever, or I may take it out at some point. I think it was talked about more than we shot it, but so it wasn't completely alien to me to use weaponry, but yeah, I mean, the training, and a different kind of training and a different kind of mindset. Obviously, my main sort of objective was to destroy lives rather than save them. So that was interesting from that point of view. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's a very well drilled show, Strike Back, but you know, there was not many redeeming features for my particular character, but you know, thoroughly enjoyable. A very, I mean, regardless of the show, regardless of what role it may be, the most, you know, if you have a good environment, you know, to shoot film or TV show, you know, that is the most important thing, really. And it also frees up everybody, it relaxes everybody. And Strike Back was just so good in that way. I mean, they had a season behind them since Cinemax came in, so everything was well oiled, and there was a real family vibe. I mean, I'm not just talking about people that you're working with in front of camera. I'm talking about all the departments, and I'm talking all the departments behind the camera. I mean, very rarely do you get this kind of universal togetherness, this unity, and Strike Back really had that. So I mean, it's one of the most fun. Even though I was playing this dark character, it was one of the most exciting and most fun experiences I've ever had, really. I mean, it really was that good. So I'm glad that they can go on and have another season and maybe another one out of that, because they deserve it, because they really made me feel welcome.
There you go, Jenny. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
Hey, no problem, Jen. No problem.
I know you're rushing off to be somewhere, Jenny. What are you going to do now?
Actually, I have to go to a doctor's appointment.
Of all the ironies. Yes, my goodness. There you go. All right.
Thank you very much.
Good to hear from you. All right. Yep. Take care.
Yep.
We'll talk to you later, Jenny. Thanks for calling.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, Jenny.
Bye.
Bless her.
There you
my
go.
Goodness.
You've made that girl's day.
She's a great supporter. I mean, honestly, she's very, very, very sweet. Always, 24/7.
Absolutely.
She's a very sweet lady. Yes.
Now, one of the other projects that I wanted to talk to you about is the one that's currently in post-production with Ben Kingsley. And again, are you playing another soldier?
No, I mean this is well, actually, I mean he was a soldier, but he'd served, but I don't have any of that particular. Mine's more. It's high diplomacy nightmare. That's where you pick me up, because I am the regent's son. And the regent being Regent Haughty is the Sir Ben's character. So he, that was one of those where I kind of, ended up getting the job fairly late in the day and coming in, and all of a sudden, Ben Kingsley's your dad, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a score, So that was all really exciting, and it's a film that is. I don't know if you know the story, but I mean, it's a film based on it's set in 1944. It's in Hungary. There was a guy called Rosenbaum. I can never pronounce his second name, but in this, he's called Elek Cohen, which is played by Jonas Armstrong, who Ross would maybe know from the Robin Hood series, the revamped series. He was Robin Hood, the lead.
Right.
And
right.
So he's kind of playing this Jewish guy that sort of he has these, I guess, Aryan features, I suppose, that enables him to kind of infiltrate the SS, and he literally does this kind of almost like Schindler's List thing, because there's this glass house, which was a glass factory in Hungary, where they housed these refugees, I suppose, and it was a Swiss safe house. So there's another guy that was very important in history called Karl Lutz, and he offered or created Swiss passports, or I suppose letters of protection. There was about, it was a small place, but they managed to, it was like over 3,000 they managed to save. The film reminds me of, like, it's a cross between sort of Schindler's List and Defiance. I don't know if you ever saw that film Defiance, which was all about, Daniel Craig was in it.
Yes.
I think Liev Schreiber was in it as the brothers.
I just saw that like a month ago, and it is a fantastic movie.
Well, it's a fantastic movie. I actually read the book long ago. The book's called Brothers in Arms, and I said to a friend of mine that was in production, you need to buy the rights, because I think this would make a great film. He didn't, and it became a film, but that's another story. But he but it kind of crossed between those two movies, and of course, there are just endless true stories of this all coming out, and the director had seen a documentary on this and decided. This is his first time feature, by the way. He decided to, make a film. He made money in, I think Property was his main, that he made money in it. So he literally just put the money where his mouth was and just, hired an incredible production team and scriptwriter and DP. Dean Cundy is our DP, and he was responsible for the original Halloween, the original Thing, Back to the Future trilogy, Jurassic Park, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The West Wing, the series. So, an incredible guy and such a nice guy and a great cast. Bern Gorman's in it, who's fantastic, and William Hope, who I was a great fan of, and Ralph Brown, who's done a bunch of stuff, but probably his most famous thing being that With Nell and I, Danny the Dealer. Ross, remember the Camberwell carrot?
Yeah.
So, it was just a great thing. So this was like the last segment, because they've been test screening this this is a film that has been in production for probably a couple of years, probably more. And what they did, they kept kind of piecing this stuff together, the story together, test screening it, and then making their next move based on stuff like that. I mean, there is a fine line, because you can't just go out just to try and just please the audience. You've got to kind of have a voice, I feel, which I think they have anyway, of their own. But they did this thing, and then there was references to the regent and his son, because in real life it was quite an important piece of history, because the Nazis, or the SS in particular, ended up kidnapping my character, the regent's son, to kind of force the regent to abdicate, because we're in a position where we're trying to play off the Nazis and the incoming Russians and the Allies and all this stuff. We're really in the middle of it all. So there's this diplomatic subplot going on all the time. And in order to try and, at this point in the movie as well, we're kind of siding and going over towards the Allies. And of course, the Nazis by this point are saying, right, enough's enough. So they come in at us, and my character's kind of kidnapped, and I don't want to plot spoil it too much, but I mean, things happen. So, which really forces the regent into a very drastic decision as part of this. But that's, you know, it's an important subplot to all of it. But the main through line is Jonas's character going in, and again, you know, a true life character, if you can imagine this Rosenbaum character, or Ellick in the film, literally going into the SS in uniform, becoming one of the officers, and trying to save, in the ghettos, trying to save these various Jewish people from extermination, because we're coming into the final solution at this point. So if you can imagine that, this guy putting his butt on the line every time he goes in, and not without suspicion, obviously. You know, anybody could have called him out at any time. He still had the balls to bring back, put in the glass house, get you know, a bunch into this safe house with letters of protection, and then go out again multiple times with a couple of his friends, doing this same thing under the most extreme pressure and intensity. So, you know, I think it's a good story. It's an amazing story, you know, when you think about it in terms of this happened.
Well, and it's a true testament to where conviction will get you further than actual anything else.
Yeah.
Because if you have conviction, to, you know, the balls on him to be able to walk out in and out repeatedly and do what he did, it was all done. And the suspicion might have been there, but nobody was going to say nothing because he had conviction. Yes. You know, he walked with a purpose. He had his clipboard and did what he needed to do. You know, and
he was a great actor.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You know, and but yeah, fascinating story. So you've got that kind of on the ground action playing out with the sort of higher political side of things as well, as the Nazis close in and the Russians come in from one side. So, and the Hungarians, of course, in the middle of that, trying to do the deals and play off one against another and all this sort of stuff. So it's a really nice, complex sort of piece, I think. So they must have so much footage. Their post-production is probably going to go on for a while. I mean, I gather that there may be something at the end of the year. I think they recently test screened it in Michigan. So, you know, there'll be those sort of things going on, but I think that's their aim by the end of this year.
It seems like a really weird place to test screen something. Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know. Just keeping it low key. I don't know. There's some Main Street theatre there. But they've really, in terms of, you know, the entirety of the test screening situation, I mean, they've gone all over the States, and the film company themselves are based in San Diego, I believe. And Liberty Studios, I think, is the name. But you know, this is all part of the model that they're pursuing. But I think they've got something. I mean, you know, as long as they've got a chief overseer, you know, some kind of, you know, got editing whiz and you know, a collective kind of agreement on things, I think it could be a nice piece of work. They've really got I mean, I said this. I mean, they've got enough to try and pitch it as some kind of mini series. You know, it's you know, not you know, 3 or 4 parter maybe. It's that they've got that much stuff. But I think they want. I could be wrong, but I think they would like to go the traditional route on it, and I think they've got some avenues for that. So we'll see, you know. But it's interesting because, you know, when I went in there, it was the first time I'd been in there to film the last section. But there were a few that had been there since it, you know, the whole thing kind of started up. So you had these stories, you know, of all of their previous experiences, and you know, and here they were again. So it was, but you know, everybody was very optimistic about it, and I managed to see some of the stuff that they had shot, and it's impressive. Production values are very, very good. So it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting.
When we first started talking about this, you called Ben Kingsley Sir Ben Kingsley. Did he get knighted? Have I missed something?
Yes,
he did get knighted.
He did. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's a few years ago now. I just called him Dad. So I mean, you know, it wasn't that, and he called me son, so it wasn't like a problem, you know, because I hear this. Well, do you call him this? Do you call him that? He never made an issue of it, and I literally just called him that, or father, because of our particular aristocratic roots. But we but you know, I have to say of you know, I was talking earlier about Rona, you know, and saying, well, you know, I can't really say I worked with Rona because I really didn't see Rona, but obviously Ben, I had most of my stuff with him, and what I can say about him is that he's just, you know, if you consider the body of work, and he's just doing all that promotion for Iron Man 3 and all this sort of stuff, and you know, the best thing about him from personally working with him is that, and this is going to sound silly, but he cares. I mean, he still cares. He could have phoned this in. This could have been anything, you know, for him to just kind of do, to pay off, and you know, I don't know, a holiday home or whatever. But it's just, he really did make a point. He's very much for the ensemble, you know, and making sure all the conditions are right to produce some good work. And he's so approachable. And you know, off camera, we were hanging out, and I didn't even have that moment where you're thinking, this is, you know, Ichgat Stern, this is Gandhi, this is, you know, all of the people, this is Don Logan from Sexy Beast. Not once did I have that kind of moment. It was just, you know, dad and son. And it was just like, but we're having this conversation. And I was just really impressed with the sort of commitment, you know, he was locked in and just with you all the way. And so, you know, when you're with somebody like that, it's just a real joy to be sort of doing, and things happen then. You can't predict you have a framework, but you can't predict where those things can go. And they can be, sometimes they can crash and burn. It's like, oh, we won't do that on the next one. But, you know, other times it's like really liberating, and because, you know, it's not like I want to go in there and just improvise all the time. I think that can be a bit sloshy, and all these people go, oh, we just improvise for hours and hours. That can be too indulgent for me. But if you've got a framework, and then you can kind of, you know, play a little bit around there, then that can be, you can get some of the most, you know, profound stuff and most and more exciting stuff. And also we had to, in our very short space of time together, we had about 10 days for the both of us, and I had a little bit longer than that once he flew off and did what else he's got to do. But during that time, you know, for us, it was very important that our unity was cemented, let alone, you know, the political thing was one side of it, and it was an important plot device, but really we had to sell the unity of the two of them together because there was a strong bond. And I think that was part of it, you know, and I was lucky that I was this particular role to him, because he did make a point of being with me, and I wanted to make a point of being with him, and so we really got gelled in that way, which I think and I hope will come across, you know, once it plays out.
Now, did you guys go out to have dinner, just the two of you, to sit down and just chat and get to know each other beforehand, or was there any awkwardness? I mean, we're talking about Ben Kingsley here, and the guy's been doing it for 40 some odd years.
Yeah, but I think, you know, the fact that he has done that, there's a way that he can kind of conduct himself, and he's probably aware of the certain reactions that he may or may not get, and he's there, you know, he kind of nips that in the bud before anything comes about. And so I think I met him first of all in literally just, he arrived on the set, which we're going through rehearsals, and then he came in with his PA, and we kind of did a scene. You know, it's mostly to do, it was certainly the beginning part of the first scene was with just the two of us, you know, so we did our bit, and then we went to the makeup chair, and we just had a chat, which sounds so simple, and it is in a way, but I mean, it's just how it happened, you know, and there was so much to do in so little time that we just had to jump in, you know, deep end stuff. He had a finite period, and the whole production, the shooting days, you know, I don't think they had too many kind of extra days to play around with, so we really just had to hit the ground running. But I think this is often the case. If you've got to just go in, I prefer it in many ways, you know, just like as daunting as it may seem, you know, just jump in. Don't give yourself a moment, a nanosecond to think about it. Otherwise you'll just collapse, you know, and implode. I think it's just better to go with it. And the more intense, the better. And you know, you can have a lot, it sounds ridiculous, but you do have a lot of fun within that intensity.
Sounds like words to live by to me.
Well, I hope so. Work for Keith Richards.
Well, yeah, right. Unless of course you're one of the Rolling Stones, then it's do whatever you want. Well, Shane, as usual, we've sat here and we've talked about all the good stuff, but I know you got things you got to get done.
I've got to wrangle. Gents, it's been a pleasure as always. We'll catch up again soon.
Next Tuesday, we'll be back with Ross and Nightmares celebrity interviews with another guest. I can exclusively tell you today that Ricky Gervais will be joining us on air in August. Tune in, because there just might be an appearance by Carol Pilkington on air.
Brilliant.
That's going to be awesome. And right. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, Shane, again, thank you very much. And
take care. Keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you very much.
A big thank you to Chris as well for joining us on air, and to Jenny for calling in.
Yes, Jen. Brilliant. All right. See you, fellas.
All right. Have a great one, Shane.
Take it easy, Shane.
Will do. And you too.
Black Sky Radio.